there. Well, when the Prime Minister decided to make a major speech this week on fracking, he came to the East Midlands to do it. And that's no surprise, really. The region's geology is said to be rich in potential gas. A look at the map of areas under consideration for fracking proves that point, covering much of the East Midlands. And when you look at areas where licences for exploration have already been granted, you can see it concentrates at the moment on the north of the region. Well, any fracking would first have to get planning permission, and our councils report that so far they've had no applications. In the meantime, the government is trying to woo support with an offer to compensate communities and even individuals who suffer.
The point I would make, having been to see on Monday, the oil platforms that are already there on the Nottinghamshire-Lincolnshire border, it is worth making the point that those went ahead without any of the sort of community benefits that we are promising with shale. £100,000 when a well is dug before any gas has reached the surface, 1% of revenues, which could be £7 to £10 million for a typical fracking well, and then 100% retention of business rates, which for a set of wells could be 1.7 million, maybe £2 million for a local authority.
So is it a tempting offer? Well, Des Coleman has followed the Prime Minister to Bassetlaw in Nottinghamshire to find out if the people there are tempted by the money.
This is Worksop High Street. Now this week, David Cameron was just up the road promising people that they'd get a share from any of the profits that come from fracking. But is this enough to win the support of people here?
I think it's too dangerous. I mean, it can affect the water supply. It's also been known to cause some earthquakes in various areas. So, no, I'm not quite happy with it at all, really. I need some definite proof that we're guaranteed that it's not going to cause any ill effects to the environment.
David Cameron's saying that some of the profits may go to the people or to some of the local councils.
Well, can we always believe what politicians say? Can we? Really?
I think fracking's is a good idea. It's if it takes us away from coal and we need the energy, then why not? Let's do it.
My concern really was that in France it's been banned, but it's a French company that I've heard is coming over to the UK to do it over here, and I was just concerned that it's not okay for the French, but it is okay for the English.
It's a load of rubbish, because I don't think politicians do out for the ordinary people.
Okay.
And if they did it in Worksop, it'd be a miracle.
If the pollution or whatever they're using for the fracking gets into the water system, we don't know the long-term solution or the long-term problems that we may have.
What about the financial benefits that David Cameron's offering?
I think it's a little bit of blackmail.
Well, plenty of interesting views there in Worksop, and we're joined now by Kat Bürtger, who's a Green Party councillor at Kimberley in Nottinghamshire and also a candidate for the party in the coming European elections. Welcome, Kat. Yeah. And a lot of people there, we heard, very cautious really about fracking, especially in the places that they live in. What are your concerns particularly?
We've got huge concerns about the environmental risks. First of all, fracking requires a large amount of water. It's about 500,000 tonnes per frack, of which 50% of the water is completely lost and nobody knows where it actually ends up in. So there's a risk of polluting our aquifers. Secondly, the water that resurfaces has got chemicals, additives in it. So this water is polluted and we don't really know what to do with it or who's going to pay for getting rid of that polluted water. Secondly, there are some risks about earthquakes, as we've seen in Blackpool, and actually house prices have fallen significantly since then.
Well, obviously the industry would dispute some of the points you've just made. They say that all the fluids used to flush the shale gas are approved by the Environment Agency. And the industry would say that, you know, we could be sitting on billions, perhaps trillions of pounds worth of gas here.
Well, those are estimates, and in the States we've seen those estimates were hugely overestimated by 42%, and there's far less down there because we don't know. Nobody's gone down there and seen how much that actually is.
So you say that we're right to be cautious, those people were right to be cautious. Pauline, is this offer from David Cameron just a bribe, an incentive that councils will really find too hard to turn down?
No, I think it's not a bribe, it's reality that there will be a lot of profit made from the companies and it should go to local people. It should be invested in the local area where people will have some disruption, obviously.
But some of those people were rather suspicious of the motives of the politicians
Well,
and where that money will actually end up, weren't they,
yeah,
really?
But politicians are not flavour of the month, are they? And nobody believes that we do anything.
Not for a long while, no.
No, and nobody believes we do anything. But actually, the proof will be in the, whether we give it and we get it will be shown, and they'll be able to see whether it's actually happening.
Where do you stand on this, Graham?
Well, where David Cameron went to visit is a few miles away from where my father was a miner in Nottinghamshire, and we missed a trick in Mrs. Thatcher and others closing the pits. We now have the technology to burn coal cleanly, but that chance probably is gone. So my view is this is an unproven technology, and I think we should be spending way more on renewable energies that we can have, whether it's wind, water, hydro, etc.
Couldn't the money from fracking help to regenerate the areas that you're talking about? I mean,
No,
are we missing something there, Kat?
I think this is ridiculous because we are facing an energy crisis. Sooner or later we're going to run out of fossil fuels. So we need now to invest in insulating our homes because a quarter of the energy is lost.
But fracking could be one of the answers to that, couldn't it, to our energy crisis?
But we've been saying this in the meanwhile for years now. We in the Green Party have been saying for 20 or 30 years we need to start with renewables, and it's not happening enough.
We didn't know about all this gas 20 or 30 years ago. We know about it now. Let's use that now and then invest in the future when we know that will run out. But we don't. It'll be a long time before that runs out.
What they do in America, of course, they do way out in the plains. There's virtually no people out there. We know in Nottinghamshire and our region what happens when you extract coal. There's subsidence. So this is going to be at least 10 times as worse.
But they're looking particularly, aren't they, around the Nottinghamshire and Lincolnshire border? How extensive do you think that could be?
Oh, we're talking the majority of East Midlands. It could be licenses in there.
No.
The majority.
You say that we're not, Pauline. How do you know?
I mean, we saw the map earlier. There's nothing in Northamptonshire. There's not much in Leicestershire. There's a lot of Derbyshire that's not affected. I think you're right. It's concentrated on the Nottinghamshire-Lincolnshire border at the moment, and we'll have to see how that pans out. And if it doesn't work,
it's just concentrated on those areas? You seem to be saying it's going to be much more widespread.
Yes, it is a majority of Nottinghamshire. I mean, some of that is coal-bed methane, not just the gas. But something else I would like to add here is we are facing a huge environmental crisis, climate change. Now, burning further fossil fuels is actually contributing to this. We must change because, as we've just seen this winter, or with all the floods, the big freeze in the States, this costs us a lot of money and actually human lives. So burning further coal or gas is not the answer.
Okay, well, there are no applications that we know of at the moment, according to all our councillors. They haven't had any applications in, and they haven't signed anything off.
At the end of the day,
okay,
I think
we'll have to leave it there.
This is unproven. And we should be investing in conservation, not reducing conservation in this country.
Kat, thanks very much indeed.